When it comes to anything copyright related, we as children's authors usually have two big questions. One, what should I include on my copyright page? And two, do I need to copyright my book? This video will answer both. Hi there, I'm Eevi, an award-winning children's author and ghostwriter over on eevijones.com and the creator of Children's Book University. I create videos specifically for children's authors, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my weekly videos. First, we look at how to put together our copyright page, and then we'll take a look at what copywriting our book means, whether or not it's necessary, and how to go about it. Now, before we're jumping in, here is my quick but very important side note and disclaimer. I am not a lawyer, and while the information in this video is based on extensive research, please make sure to speak with your attorney if you have any specific copyright related questions or concerns. Now, let's jump right in. What is a copyright page? Where in our children's book is it usually located? And what do we need to make sure to include? Now, the copyright page in our book has two main purposes. One, it shares publishing related details with our readers, like the year our book was published and whom to reach out to for any questions regarding the sharing of the content, for example. And two, it establishes the fact that we, the authors, are the owners of the content. Now, something most aspiring children's authors are not aware of is that a copyright page is actually not a requirement. We don't have to include it in our children's book, but I would highly recommend to always include one, mainly because it informs our readers that A, the content of the book is under copyright, and B, it identifies us as the copyright holder. Now, a copyright page is part of what is called a book's front matter, which is all that goes before our actual story. Our book also has something called the back matter, which is everything that goes after our story. I have a whole separate video all about our children's book's front and back matter that is meant to help us with the layout of our book, so I'll make sure to share the link to it in the description below. Usually, a copyright page is located in the front of our book, more often than not on a left page. Here are three examples of the most common placement options, either to the left of the title page, to the left of the table of content page for middle grade chapter books, for example, or to the left of the first story page, whichever you feel would work best for you and your beautiful children's book. Board books, however, are one of the few exceptions, because here we often place the copyright page either at the end of the book or also on the back cover itself. With The Little Blue Truck and Giraffes Can't Dance, for example, we see the copyright notice on the bottom of the very last page, and with Llama Llama, we see the copyright notice on the back cover right next to the barcode. If you would like to learn more about anything board book specific, I have created a whole separate video on just board books, and I have added the link to it in the description below. Now, if we decide to add a copyright page to our book, there are 5 elements we should include. Element number 1 is the actual copyright notice. Here we simply share with our readers who the copyright holder of our book is, and we do so by including the word copyright, our author or pen name, and the year of publication. The order of these pieces are not really that important, so our line could look like one of these 3 examples right here. We have the copyright, C, 2023 the year, and my name, Eevi Jones. Most traditionally publishing books include both the copyright symbol as well as the written word, so that's what I like to do here as well. The second element is all about our author rights or our reservation of rights. We are essentially asking our readers to respect our rights as the author of the book. Here we can simply insert the short version that says all rights reserved, or we can use the slightly more detailed version that would look something like this. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means or stored in a database or retrieval system without the prior written permission of the copyright holder, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review. The third element is all about credits. For example, if we haven't purchased the rights of our book's illustrations from our illustrator, we would add the following line right below our copyright notice. Illustrations copyright C, 2023 the year, and the illustrator name. Other credits we could include here are those for the cover designer or perhaps the layout designer of our book if we made use of any of these services. But again, whether or not we include these is absolutely up to us. But notice here how we wouldn't include the copyright word or symbol because we are simply acknowledging these creators. The copyright holder or owner is the author, provided that this was what was agreed upon with these creators. Element number 4 is all about our ISBN or our International Standard Book Number. Here, my favorite ninja tip of mine is to include the ISBN numbers of all of our books available formats. So if, for example, our book can be purchased as a hardcover and as a paperback, then include both. And the reason for this is twofold. One, it lets our readers indirectly know that there are different formats of our book available. And then looking up and finding these different formats is really easy to do. And two, if we include the ISBN of each of our books available formats, we only have to create one copyright page that we can then use across the board for all our different formats for this particular book, be it our paperback, hardcover, board book, or ebook. And this is also the place where we would include our Library of Congress Control Number or LCCN. Again, completely optional. This is a unique identification number that we as authors can request that the Library of Congress assigns to the catalog record created for each book in its catalog collections. Librarians use it to locate a specific Library of Congress catalog record in the national databases. So if we are planning to make our book available in libraries, we would need this LCCN. Now, if you would like to know more about ISBNs and if and when we need one for which book format, I have a separate video that talks about just that, including the only place I would recommend you get your ISBN. And I've added the link to that video in the description below. Element number 5 is all about displaying our imprint or our publisher. If we are publishing our book ourselves, this would be us. In its simplest terms, an imprint is the name under which we can publish our beautiful children's book. And it's usually different from the author name. Creating an imprint is absolutely not a must, but if we are looking to establish ourselves as a brand, we may want to consider creating an imprint, especially if you are planning to write more than one book. Now, in my book, How to Self-Publish a Children's Book, I mentioned that I'm always using my own imprint whenever I'm publishing one of my own children's books. I often receive follow-up questions regarding such an imprint, and so I have a whole separate video all about imprints, what they are, how easy it is for us to create one for ourselves, what the benefits are, and also where to have a logo created if we would like to have one for ourselves. I've shared the link to that video in the description below. Now, the imprint I'm using for most of my own children's books, for example, is LHC Publishing. And so together with all the other elements I've just shared with you, our copyright page could look something like this, where I've added the logo of my own imprint as an example at the very bottom. So we have the copyright notice line up top, followed by any other credits we would like to add here. And we have the little reservation of rights paragraph, our ISBN for each of our formats, and the logo of our imprint, if that's what we wish to include. Now, you may have noticed that we have an additional line between our reservation of rights and our ISBNs. Again, just like the other lines, this is entirely optional, but here I like to add a place where I can be found or contacted in case someone would like to ask for permission regarding my book. Traditionally, publishers or authors add their website here, not their email address, simply because it looks a lot more professional, especially if we only have an email with a generic domain like Gmail or Yahoo. Now, if you don't have a website, don't worry. Below I have added a link to a video on how we can create our very own website without having to pay any monthly or annual hosting fees. That way you have a professional website that you can then add to your copyright page. When it comes to our copyright page, one of my biggest ninja tips is to be open to experimenting and to look around you. Just like with so many other things when it comes to publishing a book, nothing is set in stone. So there are hundreds of different ways to lay out our copyright page. So I encourage you to find some children's books that are similar to your own and that are written for a similar age group, and then see what those books' copyright pages look like. Decide which of those you like the most and then simply use those as your template. Now that you know the main components of a copyright page, you know what to pay attention to and what to include. The layout and order of each of these elements is completely up to your own liking. This takes care of our copyright page. So now let's take a look at the second main question I receive regarding anything that has to do with our copyright, and that's, do I need to copyright my book? Here, the most important takeaway is this. When we write a book, we automatically own the copyright. The minute we write something down, we own it. We, as the authors, are the only ones who have the right to make copies in any way, shape, or form of our work and distribute copies of our work or create any derivative work. So if we automatically own the copyright, the question then is this: is a registered copyright necessary for our book? Now, while we already own the copyright of any of our work automatically, a registered copyright is a public record of our ownership. So while the protection is always there, registering our copyright expands our protection. So for work published within the United States, a registration is absolutely voluntary, meaning we don't need to register our work in order to have protection. But in order to sue in court, if our work is infringed upon, we must previously have registered our copyright with the U.S. Copyright Office, meaning registration is a prerequisite for filing a copyright infringement or a lawsuit. But again, it is not required for copyright protection. Now, I have mentioned the publication in the United States specifically, and the reason I made this geographic distinction is because many countries have no formal or separate copyright registration process, but the United States is an exception. All that being said, copyright infringement is extremely rare, which is why many authors actually don't take this extra step. But let's say we do decide to officially register a copyright for our book that we are publishing here in the US. What would be the best practices? Well, first of all, we should wait with the copyright registration until our book is published. And there are two main reasons for this. One, we should wait until after publication because many vanity publishers have long used copyright registration lists to look for customers. So when we are registering our unpublished work, we may be solicited by lots and lots of questionable companies. And so by waiting until after our publication, we can prevent that. And two, by waiting until after publication, we are less likely to make any major changes to our script where we may want to make a new claim in our work. Now, simply making spelling corrections doesn't really warrant a new registration, but adding an additional chapter or additional pages, for example, might. Now, when it comes to registering our copyright here in the US, we would do so at the US Copyright Office. There are a number of online services that will register our copyright for us for a fee. That being said, registering copyright ourselves isn't hard at all, so I'd encourage you to save your money and to do it yourself. Here, my ninja tip would be to file it online, and that's because filing it online instead of sending it in on paper will save us more than 50% on filing fees. Now, to get started with the registration, we would simply go to copyright.gov/registration and scroll down and click on the literary works option. Once there, we'll find a button that reads Register a Literary Work. If this is our first time visiting the site, we'll have to create a new account. So at the very bottom of the login window, click on If you are a new user, click here to register. When we are setting up our account, we can register our copyright under a pen name later, so don't worry too much about whether to use your legal name or your pen name right here. Once you're signed up and are logged in, make sure you select the Register One Work by One Author option in the very left column. This is the most cost-effective option, allowing us to register our book for currently $45 instead of $65 for the standard registration. The filling in of all of the details in this form is pretty much straightforward, so simply follow the screen's instructions here. And once we have entered all the required information and have submitted our payment, we will be prompted to submit a copy of our book. According to this website, the average processing time is usually about 2 to 3 months if we use this online registration form, and we will then receive our certificate of registration in the mail. The process is really straightforward, so if you decide to go ahead with your copyright registration, save yourself any unnecessary costs and do so yourself, and do so online. That would be the most cost-effective option. I've been asked so many times to create a video on anything copyright related, so I really hope you found this helpful and informative. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet. It really encourages me to keep making free videos for you just like this one. Here's to your very own copyright page for your beautiful children's book. Bye!